Hello, everybody. It's Griffin here from The Breakfast Dish. I'm just popping in here real quick with one tech note. We talked with the awesome Louis B. Hobson this week, but unfortunately we ran into some tech issues. So we hopped on a Zoom call and Louis B. Hobson called into that. So the audio is obviously going to be a little bit different this week, but we really wanted to chat with him. So I hope everything's okay on that front. And that's it. Here's a little clip of an APN show that we love.
In the small prairie town of Hillview.
In the center of town, Hillview's single traffic light shifts from red to green, which has no effect whatsoever as Main Street is, as usual, completely devoid of traffic.
Bored teenagers use their modified hoverboards to sneak into other dimensions.
An abandoned cityscape lies half buried in the sand. Welcome to the multiverse.
It's dangerous.
The entire right side of her body looks like just a glitched out mess.
It's stupid.
And then I immediately turn around and punch him.
It's got parent groups in a panic.
Just don't do it, okay? Hugs, not slugs. All right, thank you.
And it's the coolest thing ever. This is Slug Blaster.
Well, your funeral and ours, I guess. And then Angus points and fires.
There's an explosion, a burst of slime goes flying.
Your reign of terror has come to an end.
It kind of scrambles and glitches out, and you can see that this is like a smoking crater where your ray gun hit.
Sick.
Quantum Kickflip, a Slug Blaster actual play podcast, part of the Alberta Podcast Network.
Tell me your dreams over bacon and eggs. We'll share a laugh and a story and even a wish on the breakfast dish. Bop, 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 bop.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to episode of season 3 of The Breakfast Dish.
I was about to give you a tech note of like, no, Karen, if you clear your throat, you have to restart, but I do understand. It's episode 61.
That's me saying.
Or 61.
I have no... 61? Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 61 of The Breakfast Dish, this podcast that I host with my son, Griffin Cork. I am Karen Johnson Diamond. He loves me more than anybody else in the world. Isn't that right, Griffin?
Sorry, I just need to, and I hate to bring business into our kind of relationship, but you mean I love you more than anyone else loves you, or my amount of love for you is more than any amount I have for anyone else?
That one.
Which one? Sorry, that's the second one. Yeah,
you love
know what?
me more than you love anybody else
on the podcast. Like, I think we're gonna have to get our legal teams involved, and I hate to do it, right? Because we're friends, so it's
okay. Non-disclosures, but you can cut this part out. But I love you more than I love anybody else on the planet.
And it's tough, right? Because I think you're breaking up, so we're gonna have to do the deal points on a contract, get this thing on paper. It's tough, but to maintain friendships, you have to put some things down on paper sometimes.
It's true. You're right. So that we don't.
And you know what, Karen? You're a great colleague. You're a great colleague, Karen. Absolutely.
Hey, thank you, producer Griffin. I really appreciate that.
I don't think I like this bit. I don't like how it's portraying me. I should have just said I love you. What are we doing? This is insane.
You know what you're doing? You're going to tell us what this podcast is all about before we introduce our amazing guest. That's what you're going to do.
The Breakfast Dish was inspired by Karen's The Breakfast Series, a series of Facebook photos introducing artists and arts-focused people to all of her friends and community. And then we got into a podcast kick and was like, man, there's lots of digital and socially distant online art happening. We got to talk about it. And then the world kind of started having to open up again. So we went, we still like talking to people, but it doesn't have to be connected to a certain kind of event. So now we just talk with people that we find very interesting or have a long relationship with.
Nice work, Griffin. Wow. Yeah.
Thanks. I've been doing this for 61 episodes. Some people forget that we're on episode 61, but I'll never forget.
Your mother raised you well. Can I talk about our amazing guest now?
You don't have to ask me for permission. You have equal co-host stakes in this. We've signed those contracts. Right. We've already done that paperwork. Okay.
I met our guest probably 27 years ago when I first moved to Calgary. He is the ultimate, longest standing, highest rating emperor of all theater critics in the city of Calgary and surrounding areas. Welcome to Louis B. Hobson. Hello, Louis.
Good morning, gang. This is fun. I even have my cup of coffee.
Oh, great. Yes, that's great. That's this thing we make people do and record in the morning, and everybody's so wonderful to do it for us. But yeah, if you don't have coffee, good luck. So I have a question. This is a big question, but I would like you, if you can, to tell me the very first play you remember reviewing in Calgary.
It was a W.O. Mitchell play for young audiences out at Alberta Theatre Projects when they were out at the Canmore Opera House in Heritage Park. That's how long ago it was. So it's way over 40 years ago. That's for sure.
And how did you get your start in reviewing?
I was teaching high school at Central Memorial, and I was working in community theater. I was directing for Calgary Theatre Singers, the musicals at the Jubilee, and for workshop theater. But nobody was reviewing those plays. And so I wrote to both the publishers of the Calgary Herald and the Albertan at the time.
Oh, yeah.
And the Herald never wrote back, but the publisher of the Albertan gave my letter to Ruth McKinnon, who was the arts editor at that time. And she came over to the school and explained that that people didn't want to review community theater because there always seemed to be such a huge backlash from the people reviewed if it was negative, and they'd say, well, who is this person? You know, how can they dare to say those things? So she said, if you're brave enough to put yourself out there, we'll let you do it. So I said, sure. And she said, well, the first thing we need is this Friday out at Heritage Park. It's a new play by W.O. Mitchell. And so that's how it all began.
And so at that time, ATP was considered still community, or was it just moving into the professional?
No, well, this is what I never understood. They came to me to ask me to do community theater, and then they gave me ATP. But what she was trying to explain, I think, was that it was not the main stage of ATP. It was their school wing, right? So I think that was her, her way of getting around that. I don't remember who maybe Shirley Gordon was reviewing for them or something like that. But anyway, that's how it all happened for me. And it never stopped.
What amazes me about you, Louis, is that you are saying the names of people that you encountered, editors and other reviewers, et cetera, that you encountered 30 years ago. And I feel like I can't remember my son, Griffin Cork's name half the time. It is Griffin.
I will not confirm or deny.
But both of you, now you did something, Karen. If you were to ask me, Louis, who was in the Alberta Theatre Project's play that you saw this past week? I'd have to think, okay?
Right.
But you asked me a question and I was answering. Those names come that easily, but not if you ask me specifically for a name. Then I'd be like you and I wouldn't remember your name, let alone, It's that thing where you've got to get the wheels moving.
Yep.
If the wheels in my head are not moving, it's really difficult for me. But if we're sitting down and having coffee or a drink and we could keep talking, then the names will come.
Right.
But not if you ask me a direct question.
Okay. I love that. We're very similar that way.
Whatsoever.
It entirely does. We're very, very similar. Very similar. What is the best part of it? Like I couldn't ever do what you do because I'd be afraid of backlash or whatever, but I also I usually know somebody in the play, so I end up just liking it regardless. So what is the best part of your job?
Well, the best part of my job is being in that theater. I love the theater. I love going to theater. I love directing for theater.
Yeah.
I love writing for theater. And I loved being on stage. I haven't been on stage for a while now, but I loved it up there. And, people have heard me tell my story so many times, but it is an important one. I have a picture of me as I probably maybe 5 or maybe not 6. I don't think I was at school yet. And I'm sitting on my father's knee and he's in a dressing room and he's got his makeup on and he's finished putting it on. And if you could see that little boy's eyes as he's watching his father transforming to go on stage, that says it all.
Oh.
I never get tired of being in the theater. I can't remember which, I think it probably was Ruth Ann McKinnon, who said when she wrote something about me being their reviewer, saying, Louis lives to be in the dark where magical things happen. and I think that's why I love going there, because the magic has never ceased to happen for me. Even if I don't like the play or the production, there's still magic in being there. And I know your audience, and you understand what I mean. When those lights begin to go down, you start to get excited. What's going on in your head is you're going, oh, please, theater gods, please make this one really great.
Right. Well, I remember you interviewed me a couple months ago for Theatre Calgary's Christmas Carol. And, your job is to ask me questions and I answer them. But you and I talked probably for half an hour before we ever got to the interview, just about the things you had seen lately and the plays and how you had missed it during stay away from each other COVID times. But that's the thing I adore about you and why I wanted to talk to you so much is that you see 80 to 100 plays a year, I think, and you never lose the joy of going.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
There would be a minute. I mean, one year when we were doing the Theatre Critics Awards, all four of us had seen 70 that we had seen as a group, right? But I had seen at least 15 to 20 more plays because I had gone to community theater as well.
Right.
And they had only gone to professional theater. So yeah, I could see up to 100 plays a year.
And I also think without the context of theater, I think someone saying about you, I live to be in the dark, also makes you sound like a very cool vampire.
People have said that before. Yeah.
What play, what was your favorite role? Because you say you haven't been on stage in a while, but you love being on stage. What was your favorite role?
Oh, no question. I played the psychiatrist in Equus for Peter Spear. Yes.
Oh.
That was, again, special for me because I was in London. I used to go to London every summer, and I would arrive there the first day after school ended, and I would leave the first day before school was ready to begin. And I lived in London, and I went to plays, sometimes as many as 2 and 3 a day, because I would go to the lunchtime ones as well. But it was my last night in London, and I saw that a new play was opening, and it was Equus. So I went down there and, got to the box office and said, I'd like a seat for tonight. And she said, sorry, we're sold out. Oh. And I said, no, you don't understand. I'm going back to Canada tomorrow. I have to see it tonight. And she said, you see that lineup over there? And there was a huge lineup. I said, yeah. And she said, well, if you'd like, you can go at the back of that lineup and wait to see if there are any returns.
Oh, no.
And I'm, oh, no. Well, I did. And then out came the director. And it was about 5 minutes before the production was ready. And he came out and he said, you have no idea how excited all of us are in this theater that there's so many of you who want to see it. And he said, our stage is built so that there are bleachers on the stage. He said, now, if you all promise me that you won't be looking at the audience and that you'll just watch the play, we will let you sit in those bleachers. Well, if you know, yes, and you gasped.
Yeah.
If you know Equus, that's the place to be, right?
Right.
Is right on stage in those bleachers, because in the productions, all the characters who are not on stage, all the actors who are not on stage, are in those bleachers. So when we're sitting in those bleachers and the first person is called and they get up, I mean, it was just an unforgettable experience. Unforgettable. And it continues for me like that because then years later, our family, it was, I think, my parents' 30th wedding anniversary or 35th wedding anniversary. The whole family went to Europe for a month. And we stayed in London. And guess what was playing? The revival of Equus. And so I said, we've got to see this play. Not thinking, Louis, of the nudity, right? So we go to this, and we're riding back on the subway, and who should come in and sit across from us but the young man who played the boy? And my mother is fine. And, she said to him about halfway on the trip, she said, we just saw you tonight. And he said, oh, okay. And she said, we really liked it. But she said, typical mother, Karen, has your mother seen the show? I'll never forget what that young man, he said, yes, and she's seen it before, so it didn't shock her.
Oh, that's brilliant.
So the play has held a great deal for me, and I loved doing it. I loved it. I love that play. I love what it says, and to be able to have said those words and become that man. Yes, it was really one of the most exciting things.
Well, speaking of things meaning a great deal and becoming something new, do you want to talk a little bit about the formation of the Critters?
That was Jessica Goldman, a wonderful human being. I miss her so desperately. She came here, as you remember, and she was reviewing for CBC. And we would, meet in lobbies before, during, after the plays. And one time she said, I think we should all go for a drink soon. And so Stephen Hunt said, sure, okay, So we did. And she said, Calgary needs to have a theater critic organization. And we said, but, we're just a small group. And she said, it doesn't matter. We need to have one. And with Jessica, you never really said no. You'd say, let's discuss it, but you'd never with Jessica say no. We saw that she wanted this to be done. And so we did it. And, for the years that it ran, it was, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I loved those final meetings when we'd get together and we'd bring the lists of the plays that we saw. And then we'd have to break it down to which ones we wanted to nominate for and which actors. And it was, we did it always at her house. And she'd serve lots of beautiful hors d'oeuvres and lots of wine. And it was, you really, I'd come home from that exhausted. I wanted for the evening to come along. That was how exciting it was.
This episode of The Breakfast Dish is brought to you by Roomie, like a roommate, Mom.
I wish you were still my roomie.
Cold drafts?
Yep.
Flickering lights? And
yes.
Where's that leak coming from?
Me forgetting to turn the sink off.
I see. If you ever wonder what's really going on in your home, like it sounds like Karen might be, Roomie's Ask a Home Inspector service can help. You have to call. You have to call. It really sounds like I'm really worried about you. Connect with a certified professional home inspector by phone or video call and get your question answers video call.
Thank you so much. It's a new normal.
Roomie will let you know what's easily fixable with a little DIY or when you might need to call in some professional help.
Like me.
Visit roomie.ca. That's Roomie, RUMI.ca, and book your Ask a Home Inspector appointment today.
Something's on fire.
What?
I could just listen to you talk about theater forever.
Well, for Griffin's sake, I'm going to go back to your question, Griffin, because I want to tell you, she the formation of this, and we had it at the little bar beside the old lunchbox space. Remember?
Oh, the Auburn.
And yeah, the Auburn. Thank you. So and I said to them, she said, all right, now we've got to have food. We said, don't order too much, Jessica, but nobody's going to come. I said, maybe the people who are nominated might come. But I said, you're getting your hopes up too high. Well, I don't know if you were there that night, Karen, but we had to order more food.
Oh, yeah. No, I remember.
Oh, my heavens. It just crowded. And we couldn't have it there too many other times because the room was too small. We kept having to find a bigger space to put it in. It was, the community embraced it so much. It made us feel so wanted. And as critics, that's important. Even if, and we know that not everybody loved us every time the reviews came out, but they loved us that night. And oh, wow. But that's what theater is all about, is this enormous love that people in the theater have for the institution, but for each other.
Well, that's the thing. I think what made us all so happy is that we come together on an opening or a closing and we celebrate together the work we've done, or we celebrate each other, but it's something else when people that are seeing absolutely everything. And I don't know, I would consider maybe sometimes get tired of it all or get bored of it all or whatever. They still want to get together and celebrate all the work. And the thing that I loved about the Critters is that it wasn't just professional theater. So it just brought so many more communities together.
It did. And the atmosphere in those Critters events was something else. It was just electric. It was absolutely electric. And for us, I'm sure it was us, but for me, was watching the faces of the person who didn't know their name was going to be called.
That
was. I'll never forget when Maureen Thomas won for Best Supporting Actress. The look on her face of total disbelief when her name was called. It was beautiful. And it's exactly what you see at the Oscars, and people say, "Oh, they're putting it on." No, they're not.
Yeah,
they don't expect their name to be called, right, Tam? We're always hardest on ourselves, right?
Sure. Yeah. And wait, no, what? I don't know what you're talking about.
Exactly.
I praise myself to the hilt, and I have no insecurities whatsoever.
You go, who, me? Yeah.
Hey, so we've talked about you as a reviewer and we've talked about you as an actor, and I want to talk a little bit about you as a playwright. I remember being introduced to you as a playwright with Almost a Love Story at Lunchbox. And I don't know if Griffin might have been at college or university or something when that was happening. I don't know if you saw that one, but
I missed that one.
But he knows you as a playwright from A Dinosaur Tale. So just tell us about you as a writer and maybe speak about those two plays or any of the other plays that you've written that you want to talk about.
The first play that I wrote, not the first play I wrote, but recently was, remember when Alberta Theatre Projects had that 24-hour playwriting thing?
Yes, I remember that.
You could, okay, well, what happened was I was writing about it, and I think it was Michael Dobbin who said, "Louis, don't write about it. Go there, be part of it." Michael, you know what? I don't know what to write. He said, "Just go there and write a play, Louis." And so I went and was trying desperately to think of a play to write. And one of my favorite eras when I was teaching English was the Romantic poets and the Shelley, Byron, and Mary Shelley when they were in that chateau in Switzerland, Lake Geneva, and she wrote Frankenstein, and Polidori wrote The Vampire. And I loved that whole idea. And so I thought, oh, well, I always told my students about that at school. I'll just write that play. That
event was, they mixed people up, right? The reviewers would write or act the shows and the actors would direct them or something?
No, that was another thing.
Oh, okay.
That was another thing. No, this one was anybody who wanted to go, they could write. And the thing was, because I was writing about the event and everything, I didn't qualify for the prize or whatever. I can't even remember what the prize was. Oh, I know. It was ATP did a reading of it,
right,
of the play. But Dale Kwan, that's where she started her play that eventually ended up at ATP.
Right.
At Lunchbox. Yeah. That's where she started it. I remember Dale, we would have little snacks. They supplied us with everything. And Dale was talking about what she was writing, the girls coming out to her parents. And we were talking up these plays. And yes, and so that was exciting to see her play get finally on the Lunchbox stage. So that, Karen, was a different thing. But you're talking about the one where, yes, we had to go and write these little things and then we had to act in them. And yes, that was fun too.
Yeah, I feel like that was a rabbits thing.
That's when there were more reviewers in town, Karen.
That's
now
true.
I'd be doing it myself.
I'd watch that.
Do you find there is a different mood? Like talking about I really like hearing you talk about the magic of theater is still there, even though you've been working at it for so long. Is there a different mood of when you walk into the viewing of a play, something like A Dinosaur Tale that you have have had a large part in, had a large hand in creating, rather than just going to a show that you're reviewing? Is there, I don't know, do you have a different kind of pre-show ritual? Do you get a drink at some and not at the others? Is there a shift in your feeling when you walk into the theater, being involved in the show and not being involved in the show?
Do you mean, am I sweating bullets?
Yes,
Absolutely. I do. It's a whole different experience, Griffin. I can't watch something I wrote in the same way I can watch other people's plays. No, not at all. Friends of mine say, Louis, do you realize? And, I've been made to sit in the audience of one of my plays, when it's, and, the people say, you realize you're speaking every single line up there, don't you? And I'm sitting there, and I'm doing the play, Griffin. So when I watch my plays, I don't want to be sitting in the audience. I'll do it from the back of the theater, but I've been forced to sit in the theater, and it's difficult because, yes, I'm doing every line.
You had, in Almost a Love Story at Lunchbox, you had the cream of the crop on stage with that play. Chris Hunt, Frank Zotter, Hal Kerbis, Lindsay Burns, Joe Perry. Am I right about that?
Absolutely, you are. And Hal Kerbis, bless him. He knew who that character was. Not very many people, Karen, knew who he played, but Hal did, and he did such a beautiful tribute. People, it doesn't matter, but there was this wonderful man out at Stage West who did their wigs, called Henrik Rajner. And he was just the most wonderful queen you ever met. And Hal knew that. And so when Hal did that character on stage, it brought tears to my eyes every performance, because Henrik was dead by then, and Henrik never got to see the tribute I wrote to him.
I knew of him. I don't think I'd ever met him because I hadn't worked at, maybe the first time I worked at Stage West, he was there, but I knew of him, but I didn't know the connection between your play and him. I didn't realize that it was, that he was the sparkle for that story.
Yeah, because he captured him. He had him there. Yeah.
Is there a play that you wish would happen in Calgary that you have never seen here?
Oh God, yes. I want somebody to do in the fall, The Normal Heart. I want them to advertise it as The Other Pandemic.
Oh.
Because with COVID, the world came together. And, we've done a lot in a short time, and people don't believe that, to neutralize this horrible virus, right?
Yeah.
If that amount of money and time and effort had been done when AIDS first emerged,
yep,
it would have saved so many lives. So yes, that's one play I really would like either someone to do or I would like to do in the fall, because I think it's a very important, and not a gargantuan production, but just a small one, just so people can come and be reminded what we didn't do back then. It's a beautiful play. It's a beautiful play. I saw it in its premiere in New York, and I knew so little about the epidemic at the time. And I remember going back the next day and seeing it again. I was blown away by it. I wonder if it would have, I think it would have the same effect today.
Oh, I think so. Yeah, there's, you know what, the play came to my mind, and maybe you remember this when the pandemic started, was, I'm going to lose the title, and maybe you'll remember. Eugene Sticklin wrote it, and it was very different from anything he'd ever written. And it was the family trapped in their house, and there was an orange fog outside.
Oh, gosh, yes, absolutely, yes.
What the heck was the name of that play?
There was that whole string of Eugene Sticklin plays, remember?
Yep.
He used to have almost one every year. He's such a good playwright.
Oh, I know.
I loved the one he wrote for Joyce Doolittle.
Queen Lear.
Is it Queen Lear? Oh, I mean, again, there you go, where you find somebody who writes a play for someone because they understand that person. He understood Joyce Doolittle.
Yes.
And so when she did it, it was pure magic. Pure magic.
All clear. Sorry, I think
I
think the name of the play that Eugene wrote.
That was the one of the house.
Yeah, All Clear. Yeah.
John Morrell was like that too. You would see his characters and you would see the humanity that he wrote into those characters. And of course, our wonderful, wonderful Sharon Pollock too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Aren't we blessed?
Are we ever?
This city, we take a back seat to nobody. Let me tell you. Anybody who, tells me you got to be in Toronto if you want to see real theater. No. We've got it here too. We really do.
And kind of speaking about that, speaking about the kind of community around the city, I know that there's a few writers and people in the city right now, trying to make the Critic community a lot larger. They're starting kind of their own independent blogs and trying to approach publications in kind of the same way you did. Is there any advice you would give those kind of people? It's not a world that I don't think Karen and I are very familiar with.
I would just say, if you love it, and that's the important thing. If you love, keep doing it. Keep doing it, even if it's just for a small readership, because the theater needs its angels. Theater needs people to write about it, to talk about it. And if these people are using blogs to do that, by all means.
Listen to that. That is the advice that people give to actors and directors and writers. If you love it, keep doing it. It's so true. I guess I've already said that. What I love about you is how much you love the theater. And I think you know this, that my mom has been a rabid theater goer in Edmonton for the last 10 years, and she sees probably as many plays as you do. And I wish that she lived here, because then she'd have somebody to go with all the time.
Yeah, it's true. And I mean, I love taking friends to the theater with me. I do. But I don't mind seeing theater on my own.
No, that's nice too.
I can do either. I think that what it means when I go with someone is then I can talk, right away about it. But if I go alone, I get to formulate those ideas over a longer period of time.
I love seeing things on my own, because then if I loved it and the person with me didn't, sometimes you get a little crunchy.
Karen, that is a very difficult thing for me.
Yeah.
Is that when I go with people and they're not enjoying it.
Yeah.
And it's so hard, because that feeling washes, you're not too far away from those negative vibes.
No, exactly.
And so, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, now, Griffin, I know we're getting close to the end of our time here, but I've introduced a new segment into this podcast that I love it. I refuse to let go of. Do you remember your dreams? Do you have crazy, wacky dreams? Do you remember them? And if so, what's the most recent dream you had that you remember? Or if you're not a dreamer at nighttime, what dream do you have for your life that you haven't realized yet?
But I'll be honest, I want to hear about the dreams. I want to hear about sleepy time dreams. I always do.
Again, we all have that one of where you're trapped.
Yep.
In some place. And that one I've been having a lot recently, but it's not always trapped in the same place. The most recent time, I'd love to remember the ones where I was trapped in the theater, but this wasn't. This was, I was trapped in my car, in my new car, and I didn't know where the button was to open the door. And I was hitting all over, and people were walking by, and I was banging on the window of the car, and nobody would stop.
That sounds like a pandemic dream. That's like a total pandemic dream. Get me out of here. Get me out of here.
It probably is. But I mean, I've had some of my best when I'm, like with the dinosaur tale, Griffin. It came partially from a dream. With the dinosaurs, because Jeff Perry had told me I need this play, and not only that, but here are the 5 dinosaurs. Yeah, and so you go to sleep. I went to sleep, and I saw these dinosaurs coming out of this wormhole thing, and suddenly, yay! There it is. There's the secret. So maybe my mind won't go to sleep, Griffin, when I'm in bed. And certainly when I'm directing, some of the best ideas for staging at night during my sleep. There's no question about that.
Well, you know what? Sleep is important. And there's one thing that's been just going on and on and on inside my head as I try and fall asleep at night. And that is that the Breakfast Dish is part of the Alberta Podcast Network, locally grown, community supported. The intro music you just heard and the outro music you're about to hear is composed by Alexandra Cowman. All graphic design for the Breakfast Dish has been done by Morgan Ernter. Karen, what's going on this week?
February is Black History Month, and at the Galt Museum and Archives in Lethbridge, you can see a screening of Cheryl Fogo's film John Ware Reimagined. It's happening Sunday, February 20th from 2 to 4 p.m. Cheryl will be there to introduce the film and to host a question and answer session after the screening. And also on February 26th at the Northern Alberta Jubilee Auditorium, it's the Edmonton Annual Black History Month Gospel Concert. The National Black Coalition of Canada, Edmonton chapter, proudly presents their annual Black History Month Gospel Concert. For information, you can go to nbccedmonton.ca or you can phone 780-427-2760.
Louis B. Hobson, thank you very much for joining us on The Breakfast Dish. We were so stoked to have you.
It was fun. Technically it took us a bit of time, but once we were on it, it was great.
I think a very special Zoom phone call episode is good to kind of shake up the listeners' preconceived notions about The Breakfast Dish. But something we will never, ever, ever get rid of is Karen will ask you an improvised question because she is the professional improviser. We didn't plan it ahead of time, and it may or may not have anything to do pertaining to what we had just talked to you about. Here we go, Karen. 3, 2, 1.
Okay, you are writing a play, and it stars Hal Kerbis and Val Pearson. What are you going to title the play?
It's almost like that same time next year kind of play, right?
Right.
I think I'd have to title it The Golden Days.
Hey,
not the golden years, but the golden days. Yeah, the golden days, because those two were part of my golden days.
Yeah.
When I had a company with Val Pearson.
Yep.
And I met Hal Kerbis out at the Glenmore Dinner Theater. Those were golden days. So much was going on in theater in Calgary, and so much was going on in my life. I would run home from teaching the drama at the school or directing a play at the school, and then I'd be off to direct something in the community. I mean, I lived theater at least 18 hours a day. So those were the golden days.
And what I expect now is that you will finish this interview with us and sit down and start writing that play, because now I really want to see it with those two people in it.
Will do.
Louis, you're amazing. Thank you so much for taking time out of what we know is your busy schedule to be with us, because you get to talk a lot about other people, and we just wanted to talk about you for a while.
Thank you for thinking of me. I really appreciate it. I really do.
Thanks, Louis. Have a great, go see a play. Go see a play or something.
Go see a play.
Okay,
and actually, go get writing on that play.
I will. Okay, guys.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Louis.
This has been The Breakfast Dish.